All right. Well, welcome. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to an overview and Q&A for our Science Policy Scholars and Residents program. I'm Sam Rayburn, Director of Programs. I also have Leanna, who is a former scholar who can help answer some questions, and she has plenty of experience considering that she also helped run the program and get it to the point that it is today. So really glad that she was able to join us tonight as well. We'll go through some slides that will offer an overview of the program itself, and particularly some details about what we can expect for the fall 2023 cohort. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to throw them in chat or throw your hand up, and I'm happy to stop then, but we'll have plenty of time at the end to answer any other questions that you might have. We'll see how much we can get through tonight, and always we'll have our contact information if there's anything that comes up between now and the application process, or just thinking through next steps with the program. Let's see. So first, I want to talk a little bit about the program structure itself. This is an experiential learning program, meaning that it's something that is hands-on and is something that's designed to help participants really get in and practice skills that will be helpful in both academic career as well as professional career. So some of the things that you can expect is practice writing and oral policy communication skills, developing and creating a science policy portfolio, networking with professionals in the field, as well as completing a project with a science policy organization. So really tackling a lot of different aspects of what you can expect to have or need to have in a science policy career. The bottom part here, you see the way that the program is sort of broken down into three components. Part one is what we call a pre-scholar status. This is for folks who are accepted into the program, but it's a sort of asynchronous component where individuals will have time to write the first draft of a policy brief, and there'll be different opportunities for support through that, but that's work that you'll complete on your own before entering a 6-week boot camp, which is really focused on building up a cohort, building connections with other people in the program, as well as learning and hearing directly from science policy professionals. And then part three is the residency component. And so this is an individual part-time project that has a really flexible timeline with an external organization. So with somebody that isn't NSPN, working on something that is unique to you. And we'll get into a little bit more details about these components in just a minute. Want to first talk about the program theme. Each cohort is very loosely based around a theme in science policy. The theme for fall 2023 is Policy for a Healthier Society. The reason is that it provides an opportunity to unite the cohort around a common interest and build some connections right at the start of the program. The ways that this is applied in the program itself is a keynote lecture in week one that is centered around the theme, as well as policy brief and breakout room topics that are centered around this theme. But it's not necessarily applied in the general pedagogy of the boot camp itself. Networking with SciPol professionals, you're going to get a whole gamut of different folks with different experiences, not just ones related to the theme. And your residency. It could be, if that's what is of interest to you and that's the organization that you want to work with and the project you want to work on, but it doesn't have to be directly related to the theme. So a few details about the theme of this coming cohort are there. A few other things to note: that you don't need to be an expert in the theme to apply. That is not a barrier to entry at all. It is really just a way to create some common connections and some various interests in it. And so you can see here, if we break down the types of participants that we have in our cohorts, you do have some that are an expert in a theme, and a theme is directly related to their research or discipline. You have some that aren't experts, but it is still related to their discipline. And then you have some that are not experts and it's not really related to their discipline at all. So really the entire spectrum of folks can come in and, if they have an interest in the theme, still be able to participate. Definitely not a barrier for folks at all. And it's an excellent practice for becoming a policy generalist. It gives you a chance to learn about a theme that you might not otherwise get the chance to get a lot of exposure to, and you can kind of build up broader skills in the science policy arena. And it's another great way to dive into a topic that you may have that interest in, but you don't necessarily have the time to explore it with your own studies or research, or the current career that you might be on. So it's a great way if you just have an interest and want to learn more about, in this case, health policy. So diving into the phases a little bit more, the pre-scholars phase is a 2-week period where you write the first draft of your policy brief. Writing is a big component of this program. So you'll be given some tools to be able to help you do that, a template, prompt, instruction. There will be opportunities to do brainstorming, co-working sessions with other scholars, pre-scholars at this point. And those that are accepted in the program will get the chance to connect a little bit if there are things that they want to be able to do sort of in a live virtual setting during this 2-week period. But there are also opportunities to just tap into other events that may be happening in NSPN. We have lots of programming and policy brief writing videos that have been recorded from other sessions. We may even be able to offer some other live over Zoom writing sessions concurrently with this period. So lots of opportunities to engage and build up these skills in this 2-week period. This used to be a part of the application where folks submitted a first draft of a policy brief to be considered for the program, but it's now separated into those that are already accepted. The only condition is that you do still need to complete this step in this 2-week period and submit your first draft of your policy brief on time, on the schedule that is provided, to be able to continue with the boot camp and the rest of the program. So we do expect folks to finish this. It's just something that we only ask those that are fully accepted in the program to participate in. From there, you move into phase 2, which is the boot camp itself. This is a 6-week cohort-based program on policy writing and pitching. There are weekly live sessions. The first hour is a Q&A with a science policy professional. Second hour includes a lot of breakout room activities. These sessions, because it is cohort-based, we really want folks to be able to interact with each other, get to know one another, and build those connections as part of the boot camp. And so, we really emphasize the goal of making sure that folks are actually working and collaborating with one another throughout those weekly live sessions. So things come up and that can definitely happen, but this is not meant to be an asynchronous component. It's meant to be one that you can really collaborate with each other during those weekly live sessions. Other bootcamp components include individual meetings with a writing consultant. So getting really quality feedback on somebody who has a lot of experience with writing to develop that brief and your ideas even further. And then it culminates in a Scholars Day where you're able to essentially share the work that you've done throughout the bootcamp as a pitch to the broader NSPN community. Practice those skills and being able to talk about the subject areas that you're interested in, and also celebrate the work that you've done with others and network and connect with those as well. Some of the deliverables that you can expect from the boot camp is an individual policy portfolio, including a final policy brief. There'll be lots of other things that you'll kind of build and develop along the way that can go into that portfolio, but those writing samples are really, really valuable to a lot of different careers in science policy. And then you'll also work on a group policy pitch with sub-assignments along the way. So you'll get a lot of exposure into doing the collaborative work that happens so often in science policy and those pitching skills. This is not lecture-based, not introductory course in that regard. It is a working collaborative cohort-based environment. So it's not the sort of thing where you sort of turn your Zoom on and just sit there and listen and try and absorb information. It's a lot more interactive when you're talking with the science policy professional and then doing breakout room activities that are directly related to those group pitches or your individual portfolio and supporting your development along the way. The final phase is a residency. This is a 6-month project with an external science policy organization. So not with NSPN, but with potentially partners of NSPN or other groups that we or you or we together help identify some logistics of the residency itself. It's part-time. You can do it on top of other things that you're doing. Typically, it's about 5 hours a week for 6 months. The timeline is pretty flexible. As long as you start within a year of finishing boot camp, that's totally fine. So even if you complete the boot camp and get super busy, you'll have time to find a residency and get started with it, as long as you start within a year of the end of your boot camp. You are paid for this residency. There's a $3,000 stipend, which works out to about $25 an hour. It is fully remote. You aren't required to travel to do anything in person. This is something that you can do wherever you are. And it is fully customizable. You really will partner with your host to determine what type of project you want to do. They may have some ideas, you'll have ideas, and you'll work together to customize something that is relevant and meaningful to you. There's a few different ways that we can help you find a host. So one, if you have an organization in mind or you have connections somewhere and you know that that's where you want to go, we can work with you to build that relationship and have you, go to an organization of your choice. We also have a lot of organizations that we've worked with over the years that have had great experiences with our scholars, that are always looking for more help and support that we can connect you with. And we're working on putting that into more of a residency bank where scholars themselves can start to browse it. Right now, it's all sort of internal, but developing a tool where you can actually look through the organizations, look through the different projects that scholars have done in the past, where other organizations who hear about our program and are excited can share their information in the hopes of trying to get a scholar as well. So that residency bank will be another opportunity to basically land a host for your residency. This page just shows some of the recent residency hosts and some of the projects that they have participated in. So UCS, Washington State Academy of Sciences, Research America, a whole gamut of different things. And if you look at the different topics, you can see how customizable they are and how relevant they are to the person that is completing the residency. And so this is just a small sampling of recent ones that have been done. And we are always working with scholars in that year time frame after they finish the boot camp to make sure that they get matched essentially with a host that they are excited about, where they can really work on a project that is meaningful and relevant to them. So part two, I want to talk a little bit about eligibility and the application itself, since that's the time frame that we're in now with the applications being open and what candidates can kind of expect throughout the application process. So a few logistics for eligibility. In order to complete the program, you must be a current dues paid NSPN member. And so if you are unsure of your membership, you can reach out to us. We can double check and make sure that you're up to date. If you know you aren't a member, you can become one online really easily. Overall, the cost benefit of becoming a member for a program like this is sort of a no-brainer. If you do the residency, the $3,000 stipend, it's like $20 a year to be a member. So definitely comes with a lot of other benefits as well. Another eligibility point is that you must be US-based or a US citizen abroad. US-based international students are required to obtain proper work permissions. This is usually the CPT for F1 visa holders. So that's just something that we would have to work through a little bit more. Next component is to be early in your science policy career. So this program was originally designed with grad students in mind, but anyone from undergrad to postdoc is eligible. And so there's, some sort of gray area there when it comes to that definition of early, but that's typically what we're looking for in terms of eligibility. And then I was alluding to this earlier, but we want you to be available for all the program components. So that time period to asynchronously write a policy brief, and there are the dates for this cohort, 9/14 to 9/28 September. Attend all the boot camps We'll do some work to figure out what night of the week, but looking at 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, and that will run from October 2nd to November 12th, and then be available to present at Scholars Day. Again, that will be in the evening on a weeknight of November 13th, and then complete the residency component beginning January 2024 through a year after the completion of the boot camp. So some details on the types of groups that we're looking for, types of individuals. The time commitment is designed with a PhD student schedule in mind, which is why it comes out to about the 5 hours a week. Other internships may be more suitable if you have more time. So there are other opportunities out there that if you're looking for something that is more part-time or closer to full-time, that may be a little bit more applicable, but this is really geared toward that schedule of about 5 hours a week on top of other things that you may be working on. As in terms of goals and prior experience, this is most suitable for those intermediate in their science policy journey. It's not introductory, not lecture-based. There's lots of hands-on activities, so that's what we're looking for. If you are just getting started learning about what science policy is, we've got lots of other resources and places to start that would probably set you up for some more success to do this program later on down the line. You should know some basics of writing to non-scientific audiences. Scientific research and writing is great, but being able to adapt that to non-science audiences, skills will come in handy. And you should not be in an immediate position to start a full-time job. This should be something that can bridge that, certainly, but not something that is going to suddenly interrupt your schedule or your ability to meet the requirements that we discussed on that page a few minutes ago. And then you should be able to articulate interest in all the program components. And so we want you to be able to see how each of those different elements of this program are relevant and of interest to you, because it's a package deal. This is something that we want the entire experience. That's why it's an experiential learning. That's why it's a program that's built this way, is because we want you to get the entire experience and everything that comes with it by completing the program. Here's some hints and tips on how to prepare. Policy writing, whether published or not, but just practicing that, taking a SciPol course, certificate, or workshop, meet with your elected official or their staff, get engaged and involved with what's happening in science policy in your neck of the woods, participate in an NSPN or your local chapter. Lots of different ways to get involved, attend events, help plan events, hold leadership in relevant student groups. So there's other student groups that may touch on these issues, or maybe completely unrelated, but having some leadership in that can certainly help prepare you. Engage in any kind of science outreach or communication that's going to help build up those skills. Grassroots advocacy, volunteering for a political campaign. Those are all experiences that would really help candidates stand out and prepare for this type of experience. So not an exhaustive list, but having 1, 2 of these certainly is great, and certainly quality. If you do one of these things and have done a lot of it, that's going to speak volumes as well. A little bit about the application itself. There'll be an opportunity to talk about your experiences in science policy, 20%. There are 4 brief essays. Their topics are your plan for contributing to providing the science policy field with diverse perspectives and experiences, what you hope to gain from the boot camp, what you hope to gain from the residency, and to look at an issue in health policy and some potential avenues for addressing that issue. So really brainstorming and thinking about, potentially what your policy brief might be about. There's a lot of information in the application, a lot of details. Please look at the word limits, formatting requests, bulleted lists versus essays, those types of things. Pay close attention to all of that, because that makes a big difference in the reviewers being able to understand and read it well, and be able to score you fairly for entry into the program. So definitely take some time to look at it. I also always sort of recommend that not a bad idea to work in a separate document, whether that's a Word doc or Google Doc, especially on your essays, so that you can copy and paste them over rather than just working directly in a web browser where, you know, if it fails or if it needs to reload or you lose connection, suddenly you lose your progress. But pay close attention to the way that it's formatted and the way it asks you to answer those questions. So for the selection process itself, we de-identify all of the applications. So we take away all the identifying information about you as an applicant. And those applicants are then scored by a combination of program alumni, folks that have gone through the SciPol Scholars Program in the past, as well as staff at NSPN. And then between 12 and 15 applicants are accepted into the program. The top ones that are accepted are based on just that score alone, that blind scoring of the applications. And then the rest of them, it's a group deliberation process. So we are always striving for diversity in terms of demographics, experiences, disciplines, thoughts, ideas. All those things will go into consideration. And we do have a silent wait list until all spots are filled. So a final decision will be communicated to all applicants. It may take a little bit longer as we're, you know, working through that potential wait list and confirming whether or not folks have accepted a spot in the program. The program is competitive, 30% acceptance rate last year, but many people apply more than once. So, you know, this is definitely one of the situations where, you know, acceptance into the program isn't necessarily always a reflection on, you know, your qualifications. It's just a statement and a testament to the quality and the number of applications that we receive for the program. But that's one of the reasons why we're able to run it twice a year, so that there's lots of opportunities for folks to apply, work on their applications if they don't get in the first time, and build those skills up a little bit so they're even more competitive the next time around. A few notes on applying. When in doubt, apply. It can definitely be a learning experience, even if you're not quite sure. No harm in applying, right? And you may learn a little bit along the way on things that might be helpful, not only applying to this program, but applying to other roles or opportunities in general. Writing is assessed at every stage of the process, including the application. So proofread, write complete sentences, follow those word limits. Writing is such an important part of the program. We're going to be looking at that right from the start. Of the ways to gain experience, the number one way is policy writing experience. That will help you the most. The selection process is holistic. We are looking for quality over quantity. While prior experience does help to a degree, what you write in your essays holds more weight. We really look at that very carefully and are trying to find the right fit when it comes to folks in the program and in the cohort. If you are completely new to SciPol, plenty of time to become competitive for the spring 2024 cohort. So if this is something that you're super interested in, but it's brand new to you, plenty of ways to get involved, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me or other folks at NSPN to learn about some of the opportunities all throughout the fall. I can think of a couple off the top of my head that will be running almost concurrently with the SciPol Scholars Bootcamp. That would be a great opportunity for folks that are fairly new to start getting involved and becoming more competitive for, you know, next year in the spring. And if you were unsuccessful in applying previously, try again. Please do. There's so many different variations and little things that can help between application cycles. So if you've been unsuccessful in the past, please try again if you're interested in completing the program. Here are some important dates to keep in mind. The applications will close on August 21st at noon Eastern time. So that seems a little ways away, but I'm sure it will creep up on us quickly. So just pay attention to that date. September 13th is the sort of final date when all applicants will be notified about their status. And then February 5th of 2024 is when applications will open for the spring. So again, if you're thinking that, you know, maybe the fall isn't the right fit and you're thinking ahead to the spring, you can look at February 5th as the start to applications. For the program itself, the pre-scholar stage where you're writing your first draft of the policy brief is September 14th to 28th, that 2-week period. The boot camp will be October 2nd through November 13th, so that you can mark those dates on your calendar. The exact date of the week that those will be hosted on will be determined soon. And then the week of November 14th will be Scholars Day. Again, we'll pick a specific date as we get closer, but you can kind of keep in mind the 14th of November as the week of Scholars Day. And then January 1st, that residency eligibility begins. All right. So I'm sorry for all the talking at you, sharing all of that information, but now we're happy to open it up to any questions that you have, either about the information that I've shared here or other things that come to mind about the program, about the application. And again, if you want to review any of the information in this presentation, there'll be a link and everything on our website on the program page in the next couple of days with a recording of this. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and review the information in these slides at any time. But happy to open it up, and feel free to unmute or throw into the chat any questions that you have. Yeah, go ahead. Madeline.
Hi, thank you so much for that presentation. That was really informative. I unfortunately joined a little bit late, so I have just a couple questions about the program itself. Is it entirely remote? So if we are in a PhD program, do we join and interact virtually?
Yes, so it's all virtual. There's no in-person component to either the boot camp or the residency. What we do expect, and I can go back to this slide in a second, is to be present during those live boot camp sessions. So when the boot camp is running, we want you to be there. That takes place in the evenings to try and work around that PhD schedule. And that's a chance to really collaborate, to network, to do those really important program aspects, but you don't have to leave your house to do it. Or if you're traveling, or if you're working late in lab, you can join whatever way is most convenient.
Thank you so much. My second question, that's really helpful. My second question was, if we're on a trajectory to defend in the spring semester, is that too close to the potential job prospects to actually be eligible to apply?
Yeah, that's a great question, Leanna. I'm happy for you to chime in too. But no, I think our definition, you are, well within what we're looking for. But we do want to make sure that you're completing, the residency component as much as possible. So that's sort of, I think, a little bit of your balance, and thinking about the residency usually takes place over the course of 6 months, about 5 hours a week. If you think that that's something that you can balance with job searching, maybe starting a full-time position, those sorts of things, that's, I think that's something that you can think about, but it is something that we want you to get out of the program. So thinking about, do I have that 5 hours a week that I could dedicate to the residency component when it comes time for that?
Okay, thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Yeah, great. Thanks for those questions. Great, Emma, thank you. I just saw your comment there as well. I know it's a smaller group, and I know that in my experience, I tend to always have questions after I've sat and absorbed a lot of information. So my email is here. Feel free to take that down and reach out at any point if you have questions about the program or about the application process, anything that you run into. Also, if you haven't already browsed the website, scipolnetwork.org/SPSR will take you right there, and it has a lot of the same information that's in these slides and a lot of other details that might be helpful to you. Thanks, Leanna, for putting that in the chat too. Bookmark that as well. If this is a program that you're really interested in, even if you're thinking ahead, that's going to be a great place for you to find information. And also stay tuned for updates in terms of like when applications open, timelines, things like that. So that's a great starting point as well. I'll just give it a few more seconds to see if anybody has thought of any other questions, but If not, I really appreciate folks for joining tonight and listening to some more details about the program. Like I said, this recording, as well as previous recordings about the program, are all on our YouTube channel, and we'll link it on the program page as well, so that you can reference these slides and information easily. But if anything comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out. If you are a part of the NSPN Slack, plenty of opportunities to connect and hear from folks that have been through the program previously as well. So that's a great place to browse around for some early networking and learning a little bit more about folks that have gone through the program previously. But otherwise, feel free to reach out directly to me with anything that comes up. Just remember our sort of important dates that are upcoming in terms of when things are closing. Applications on the 21st. So I think that's the next big date to pay attention to. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening, and reach out if there's anything that comes up.